Okay, being 7 o'clock, do we have a motion to open our meeting tonight?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, good evening, everyone. This is a meeting of the Finance Committee. It's Wednesday, March 2nd, 2022. This is a live meeting tonight, and it's also being Zoomed as well. On tonight's agenda, we're going to have our Fire Chief, Mr. Kevin Gallagher, and our Town Clerk, Pamela Bonte. Before we start, I'd like to stand up and say Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, so, like I previously said, first on the agenda tonight is going to be our longtime dedicated fire chief, Mr. Kevin Gallagher. And it's bittersweet to have you here tonight, Chief. So I'll give the floor to you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Correct?
Chairman.
Chair?
Yes, I've inherited the chairmanship.
Well, before I begin, I would be remiss, as everyone would be, if I didn't thank Mr. St. Jean for his years of service to the town and to the Finance Committee, and count me among the other 10,416 people in this town that wish him well, wish him a complete recovery, and to his family as well. Give them our support and our love. This is my 19th time coming before the Finance Committee to discuss an operating budget for the fire department. It's also my last. That's the reason for the suit. And this is an important year. We're in the middle of an important transition, and I've asked, ladies and gentlemen, for firefighter Erica Ruda and firefighter Tom Farland to zoom in. They are your two candidates to be the next chief. They will be the gentlemen that later this month will be undergoing the assessment center, from which a ranking will be provided to the Board of Selectmen, and from that pool of two, your next chief will be selected. And this is going to be their budget. So I've involved them in its creation, in its modifications as we've moved through the process. So whatever town meeting decides, I may be the principal author of, but they'll be the ones who will be executing it. So, Mr. Chairman, I have one article to discuss, and then the operating budget. So it's your choice. Which one would you like to tackle first?
Let's start with the article.
Okay. Let's do the $320,000 request first.
Let's
get that right out of the way. So we are on, in my career, our fourth or fifth generation of self-contained breathing apparatus. And 34 years ago when I started, they were simple machines with very few bells and whistles, and they have grown and become more sophisticated as the dangers that we confront and the knowledge that we gain of those dangers has advanced. So we need to replace them. It's not a wish, it is a requirement. The systems, and when I talk about an SCBA, it's the bottle of air, the appropriate hoses and regulators that go to a mask, the frame, all the equipment that is included in that pack. It is the most vital piece of firefighting equipment that we have. Short of our personnel, it's our most important asset. And it allows us, as you can imagine, to go into environments that are dangerous, to put out a fire, execute a rescue, advance on a hazardous materials incident. They are not cheap. We received a grant, one of our first big assistance to firefighter grants, maybe 12 years ago, that allowed us to replace all the old systems. They have a useful life of 10 to 12 years before the NFPA says you can't use these anymore. They're no longer viable. We surpassed that, all of our bottles, all of our systems, a year and a half ago. Thanks to the generosity of a community up in the North Shore where they received the grant and were able to replace their systems, which had about a year left before they needed to be taken offline. We got those. So I've been talking to the selectmen and to you about the need to replace those. We didn't have to do it last year. We bought ourselves some time. We're not so lucky anymore. The time's run out. Those systems need to be taken offline within the next year or so. So we are in the process of holding our breath, waiting for this year's Assistance to Firefighter grants to be awarded. We've thought that we had a good shot last time, seeing that they were no longer compliant. We didn't get funded. We took our licks, we went back, we looked at, and Firefighter Farland was very instrumental in this. We looked at our application, our need, and we were able to say, we're without them now. We're borrowing from other departments in order for our firefighters to be safe. We need to replace these. So we're waiting for that grant decision to come down. That would be Plan A. And if Plan A comes through, then we should be good. We should be able to remove this article from the warrant. Last town meeting, we secured the 10% match that's required. So that's in the bank already. We wouldn't even have to ask you for that. We need to talk about a Plan B in the event that the grant doesn't come through. So what I've been talking with the administration and the selectmen. We know that we'd be able to finance this entire project of $320,000 with funds from the ambulance receipt account. We had in excess at the beginning, and I'm glad Ms. Forg is here. I appreciate seeing her living room here on the screen. We had in excess of $1 million in that account. That's for folks at home who don't know. We bill for the ambulance service, and our rates, just so you know, have been flat for the last couple of years because we follow the increase in Medicare. If Medicare goes up, our rates go up by the same percentage. For the last 2 years, Medicare rates had not changed. This year, they went up 5.1%. So beginning in February, we started, our rates increased by 5.1%. We have collected year-to-date, so far, this fiscal year-to-date, we've collected $482,000, in excess of $482,000. All of last fiscal year, we collected $632,000. So we are well ahead of schedule. The last 4 months of fiscal year 22, which would be March, April, May, and June of last year, we averaged $59,000 of receipts. If that were to hold true for the next 3 months, added to what we've already brought in, we're in excess of $700,000. So that $1+ million surplus at town meeting, and when you folks go through your final allocation of how town government is going to be financed, you move a certain amount of money, usually $540,000, from this account to offset the expense of town government. When that was done, the balance remains at $610,000. So we would be asking for half of what is there now, but we're replenishing it at a very good clip. So this is no burden to the taxpayer. It doesn't come out of free cash. It's really it's designed for operational use of the fire and EMS department. We've purchased other firefighting equipment through the ambulance receipt account in the past. So I'm here tonight to stress to you the absolute need to purchase these new items. And this won't be on my watch, right? The town meeting acts on this. This won't happen until after July. I'll be retiring in July. So this will be one of the other gentlemen to carry through. But what typically happens is a committee is formed, vendors are solicited, they come down, there's 3, 4, 5 different companies that make SCBA units. They'll do their due diligence and eventually put it out to bid and get an award. So we're several months down the road. But here's the key points. We need them. Really is no wiggle room here. We have a good Plan A, but we failed on Plan A in the past. I think now we have a very good Plan B, one that keeps it out of free cash, keeps it out of the other tax revenue expenditures for the town. And yes, it cuts the present surplus in half, but we're in good shape to replenish that at a pretty good rate moving forward.
Chief, how many units do you need?
39. Yep, they're called, it's a riding position, is what the NFPA standard requires you to have. So each seat, if you will, in all of our apparatus would have a seat. That's what we have now. We currently have that. And remember, when we pull up to an incident, we've got our call firefighters who are coming from multiple directions. And the first thing they do is get to the truck and grab an air pack. So it's not necessarily how many people are on the apparatus, it's how many seats are on the apparatus. So there's 36 seats, and then there's 3 we refer to as rapid intervention tanks, or RIT pack, rapid intervention team, which is in the event that a firefighter goes down, there's another pack that you bring in, able to switch off on the hose and the mask and get them out safely. So make sure that we're at that NFPA standard with 39 units.
Chief, is that a floating number? I mean, because you were saying that you're gonna have vendors that are gonna come back and.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's not a static
That's
number?
not, right.
Okay.
So I don't believe that that's the Porsche, but it's also not the Hyundai. It's kind of in the middle of the road. But again, and you know how these things work, right? You gotta pick a number. So, we picked a number, we worked with a vendor for the purpose of getting the numbers for the grant, and that's what we're coming forward to you as well. So the same unit price that we're asking the federal government to fund, we're asking the town to fund. But then we go through the process, and we may find that we can save money, or with supply chain issues and price increases, it may be a little higher. So but we're comfortable at 320 will get us the tanks that we need, the systems that we need.
Okay, thank you.
What do you do with the old ones?
We stored them for a while. I was asked if we would consider donating them, and the decision that I made was if they're no longer compliant with the standards, I'm not going to give them to firefighters in Ecuador.
Yeah.
If they're not safe for us, they're not safe for anybody.
Yeah.
So the tanks got drilled, so they couldn't be reused, and the regulators got cut. And Dan Menard took them off our hands. So I guess they were scrapped.
So you have none at all now?
Oh, no, we do. Our old ones that we replaced with the other communities are gone.
Gone.
But we still have.
And those will be the same?
Those will be in the same boat 8 months to a year from now. They
And
need to
how long
come
did
off.
these last, Chief?
10 years?
10 years. Yeah. Yeah. I'm feeling nostalgic. And I understand the NFPA. The NFPA is a wonderful organization, and they write these requirements. Our units aren't used every day like they are in Boston, but Boston and Acushnet has the same 10-year cap. It's the same with all of our equipment. That standard is just the standard, regardless of if it's used once or 1,000 times. So, yeah, but hopefully the grants continue. I'm really hoping that we get lucky this time and able to secure that grant funding. But if not, we really need to have on the warrant a viable Plan B. And I think this is it.
Sounds like a good plan.
I think so. I think so.
No free cash, sounds good to me.
So that is our, that's the audit. Okay, we're good? Any other questions? No?
Good, Chief.
Thank you. So now for the operating budget. We went through each and every one of the line items. Mr. Kelly, did they get the revised? Do you have?
I believe so.
Mine says 2/9, so February 9th.
So did you get the cover memo?
Yes.
Yes.
And it should say revised on it?
No.
2/9.
It doesn't?
On the bottom?
Yeah.
211?
2/11 meaning February 11th?
Yeah.
The memo?
No, the updated.
In the book, the fire department does not have fiscal year 23 numbers in it. The copy in the book.
The department request? You don't have that?
But we had it when we got the old drafts, so.
Okay.
Let me ask you, Chief, when you're looking at your total department, what's the number that you have for
For my requests,
fiscal year '22?
fiscal year '22, town meeting vote? Is that what you're asking?
Yep.
Yeah,
$1,074,914.
that's the one I have in front of me.
But the department requests, is that completed for you?
No.
For FY '23, no.
23 I have, that came with your memo.
So you have it?
Yep.
For the rest of the members though?
No,
Well, because we went off of the book, when we got the book handed to us.
Okay.
That's the version I brought with me, was the book.
Yeah.
It's in that.
it's in the folder.
It didn't get through into the book. But I have. Do you want to make copies of that? Maybe if you can,
I got a copy here if you want to make copies. Want me to run upstairs and, I don't know the code.
1089. Okay.
I've been around for nearly 40 years, I don't know the codes of the.
Don't trust me.
Nick,
Oh, that'd be
that'd
great.
be awesome, thanks.
Thank you.
It was in the packet that we had.
packet, but yeah, I didn't bring that with me because I just brought the notebook. I brought the binder with me instead. That was my-
Yeah, the
that was
fiscal
my
year
copy.
'23 department request I have is $1,089.89.
1089.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman, if it's okay with you, I'm gonna have him copy this as well. This is
Yeah.
the cover memo.
So Eric, what do you have for total?
$1,089,089.
I grabbed the memo because I knew that wasn't in the binder, but I didn't compare.
I probably have mine in here.
I left that at home.
So while we're waiting for that, this was gonna be my closing comment, but I'll do that now while we're waiting. This committee through the years has always treated us exceptionally fair, and we greatly appreciate that. There have been years where the times were good and, the line items were questioned, which is your role, and defended, which was my role, and things sailed through smoothly. Then there were those years where we were asked to prepare a 0% budget, or a 2% reduction, or a 5% reduction, or a 10% reduction, and that's rough. When you look at our numbers, you see how little we are allocated for operational expenses. The rest is personnel, and we're bare bones. We don't have the ability to brown out stations like the cities do. We have 2 full-timers working every day, and we have a part-timer working every day. Thank you. And we have the call members, and across the board, this committee has been exceptionally supportive and fair. And I want to thank you folks now and all the members that have served in the past, for the past 19 years, for their kindness and their fairness. It's been a very cooperative environment to work in.
Thank you for that, Chief, I appreciate it. And likewise.
Thank you.
I think we all understand in the committee, public safety is paramount to anything that we do.
And we have a responsibility to be fair to you, and to be fair to the taxpayer.
Police chief, public works, they all do a great job.
I think we struck that balance, and I know my successor will continue to strike that balance as well. So if you don't mind, I'll walk you through the memo. Those line items that are either increased, or there's a couple that are decreased. The numbers are in the spreadsheet, but the budget narrative really explains that. So there's no increase to the fire chief salary for fiscal year '23. The contract that I entered into was a 3-year contract. It was, the increase was in the first year, and this will be the 3rd year of that, so there's no anticipated adjustment there. Now, there may be an adjustment when the new chief is hired and negotiated, but that, is a function for the town administrator and board of selectmen and the new hire. Full-time salaries, the union in the town have not yet begun to negotiate, so that's going to be level funded in the budget. Part-time salaries, you'll see increases by $7,816. And there's 2 reasons for that. First and foremost is there's really two budgetary asks from me personally. The first is those SCBA's. We need them more than you understand. The second is we have been paying the part-time EMT basics. The folks who ride the ambulance with the paramedics, the folks who do a great deal of work at every incident that they go to. They're responsible for the income, the revenue income and the calls and the positive experience that the residents have when they interact with our EMTs. We have been paying them less than the call firefighters. We're paying $17.76 currently for call firefighters and $16.70 per hour for EMT basic. I'm looking for that to change and for them to be paid the same hourly rate, so that there's equity in the department with the part-time staff. And if you change $16.70 to $17.76 for the amount of hours that the part-time basics work, then add 2% increase for the COLA, that's the increase of $7,816. So that's really a twofold increase, Mr. Chairman. Just I want to make sure everybody understands that. There's an increase for an hourly rate for the EMT basics, and then there is the 2% increase for both the call and the part-time personnel. Call firefighter salaries increased by a little over $1,100. Again, that's 2% of the current fiscal year's appropriation. Longevity comes down $700. We've had some personnel changes. We are finally back to full strength. We have the 8 full-time staff, and we were without for a while. We've had a couple of people move on. One that was receiving longevity, so that can come out of the budget. With us being at full capacity for our full-time staff of 8, we haven't been there for a while. I'm seeking an additional $500 in clothing allowance to absorb those costs. And again, this isn't firefighting gear. This is the uniforms that are worn, the boots, the badges, the pins, all the gloves, things that clothing items, and that's across the board. That's everyone. That's just not full-timers. That I'm in there, that line item, as are the call and part-time staff. Routine maintenance for the building. It's a $1,000 line item every year. I'm seeking an additional $500 for 2 reasons. If you've driven by 60 Middle Road, you will have seen that the paint is just falling off the building, similar to what happened here at the Potting Waste building. That had to be Russian paint because it was horrible. The kids painted it a couple of years ago, and that thing's just falling off in sheets. I've never seen that before. Entire shingles just curl in the 4 corners, and then 2 months later, the whole thing was just kind of falling off. So the $500 would help absorb the cost of painting the exterior of Station 3 down on Middle Road. And also, we have a similar problem, but inverted, where the skim coating in the exterior walls, the interior face of the exterior walls of Station 1 up here is just losing paint in big chunks. And Mr. Merritt's been in. He thinks it has something to do with moisture getting under there through the vinyl siding on the outside, and it's kind of causing that to happen. So $500 isn't going to do both buildings, but added to the $1,500. The labor would be done by, I hate to refer to them as the kids, but the town hall guys, the complex guys would do the labor, and Mr. Merritt would be the clerk of the works, and I'm sure he'd keep us on budget. Training, again, we're back to actually 9 full-timers if you count the chief. So we have some additional needs in the training area there. $500 should be able to absorb that. Medical supplies, I'm looking just for a 10% increase in that. Our call volume has gone up quite a bit. We're well over, I can tell you, we will do, last year we did a little over 1,000 EMS calls. and we're already at 729. So we will bury that number. And with every one of those calls, there's expendable supplies that are used. So we haven't had to rely on reserve fund transfers because we usually start with a pretty healthy balance. But as that call volume goes up, the need for making sure that line item is flush is important. So we're looking to increase that by 10%, which is $2,888.
A quick question, Chief?
Yes, sir.
If I could, on that item, wouldn't it make sense, or does that not fall under the receipts for the ambulance that you talked about earlier? Would that not cover, should this not be covered under that? It's medical supplies?
Yeah, so, the way that we kind of think of it is that $540,000 that's taken out of ambulance receipts does kind of fill this,
Yeah.
but it goes into the town's checking account. So it kind of filters through all the departments.
Right.
But for to draw on, we can only, I know the answer to this. Look at that, 19 years, I finally looked into this. We can only move money out of that with a town meeting vote. So,
Good comeback.
yeah, thank you. That's the correct answer too. It's the correct answer.
19 years for that.
So, we wouldn't be able, I wouldn't be able to say to Mr. Kelly or Ms. Ford, listen, we need $1,000 this month, can we get it from the ambulance receipt accounts, because it's locked in by town meeting vote.
Right.
That large amount of money that the chief referenced
Yep.
is part of our revenue when we
Town.
look at the total town revenue.
Right.
So,
Thank you. Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome. In the past, I would have pulled that right out of my hat. Yeah. you got me at the. You got me at the.
You get the wrong suit on this.
Yeah, exactly. It's a length of time. Assessment center. We had last year. We put $4,000 aside for that, and we're not going to need it next year. The assessment center is ongoing, so that amount can come out of the budget. Dues and subscriptions. This one we usually takes a hit throughout the course of the year because a lot of items come out of that. A lot of the service agreements that we have for various pieces of equipment, the licenses that we use. This line item takes, July 1st, we get a bill for $7,000 from St. Luke's Hospital for their online medical control, for our ability to pick up the phone and call a doctor and have the paramedics be able to talk to them about patient care. Kind of hope that would be in the goodness of their heart, but it's not. They get paid $7,000 for that. So that's a big chunk that comes right off the top. And then there's all of our equipment needs to be serviced, so we have all these service agreements and everything. So I took a look at it, and the increase of $2175 gets us close to what the actual expenditures are. And then there's two new line items that I'm asking you to consider. The first is important. We haven't come to you in over 15 years asking for a new piece of fire apparatus, which is several $100,000, because we take pretty good care of them. They're well-maintained, they're serviced, they're inspected by the crews every day. We get ahead of maintenance. We usually are able to get ahead of any of the problems, but they're aging. And I cannot tell you how much sand and salt those things suffer in the course of a winter. In the older pieces, we can continue to extend their life, but we need to do something about the rusting underneath them, particularly this year, ladder one. That's the newest. If you remember, we got it for $40,000. I think we threw in another $60,000 for the general cost of $100,000. New, it's $1 million plus. So we want to keep that operational for as long as we can. And for $1,700, the company that services these trucks will. Is it Armor Coat? What's it's something like that. They scrape off the rust, and they apply this material underneath, and it slows the deterioration. So for $1,700, we can get ladder one done. That's the biggest of the apparatus. I would like to see this line item, and it will be the next chief's decision, to keep this line item funded moving forward, because we have a 36-year-old tanker up in the north end that is operational. We put some money into it to make sure that it's running well. We fixed a leaking tank and a couple of other things, but we can't stop the rot. but we can slow it. So if we can slow it, we can extend the useful life and keep the bigger ticket of replacing them away from all of us. So the 1,700 now would establish this new line item, and then my recommendation moving forward would be to fund it each year so that we can get those other, until that project's done. And it would be all of them by the time the newest one, which is 15 years old, comes due, would be 6 years from now, so it's 21 years old. So it's got 21 years of salt and sand and everything eating underneath, so. But eventually we'll get it done. Right, we'll go through the apparatus and then that light item can come off the budget. And then finally, extremely important, we have a recorder that's tied to our radios that records all transmissions over our radio. That is no longer operational and no longer repairable per the both the company and the local guy who has a good way of fixing these things. So we need to get a new recorder. I talked with Mr. Kelly about whether or not it should be a standalone article or incorporated into the budget. His recommendation was to incorporate it into the budget. So that's an increase of $7,500. So, long story short, operational, no, not just operations, because we got some salaries in there as well. But the increase from the current fiscal year to what I'm proposing for fiscal year '23 would be $20,481. And there you have it.
Mr. Chairman, through you to the chief. Chief, could you tell them, for the 2 trucks you mentioned, if we have no assistance, just a ballpark figure of what it would be to replace them?
Oh, God. Well, what, the ladder in the tanker? Yeah, well, I would be hard pressed to ever come to this committee in this town and ask for a brand new ladder. $1 million plus, we'd be looking at $1.2, $1.3 million for a brand new ladder.
Tiverton's getting one.
What's that?
Tiverton's getting one, yeah.
Well, I got a casino.
That's where we got the funding for.
Yeah, there's the money. Need a casino.
Funny you should say that.
Right. That's for a community this size to go out and bond. I know Mr. Noble used to talk about good debt being good debt, but that's an awful lot of money for an apparatus that, and I'll be fair, it doesn't roll every day. So finding a good used ladder is still expensive.
Yeah.
Lexington, that fell into our lap. That was right place, right time, stars were aligned. But any credible, worthy replacement for ladder 1 would be a couple of $100,000. And then the tanker, we already priced that out. I believe that was like $190. It's really just a big tank filled with water with a pump on it. But these things are expensive.
Didn't we repair
Repaired.
a couple of years ago?
We repaired it, yes. Yep. Yeah. Extremely good job. Again, the manufacturer was asking for X to the 10th power, and we were able to find a local mechanic who did it for X and saved an awful lot of money. So it's a good investment to try to prolong the useful life. That's what we've always been about that, trying to extend. Eventually, something will have to be bought new. That'll be a while.
Does anyone have any other questions for Chief while he's here with regards to his budget?
Actually, Chief, I do. Your memo says that the increase is $20,481, but if we do the math on the sheet that you gave us copies of today, the difference is $23,375.
How did that happen?
Good question.
Yeah.
That's why I'm asking it.
So I added all the purples and I subtracted the reds. I should have checked my math a little closer. I apologize for that. I'll review it and confirm, and through Mr. Kelly send you the what should have been there. And again, I apologize.
I'd like to actually say a few words with regards to the chief and his service to our town.
This is gonna be like at my wake.
We're not drinking, so.
It's not an Irish way thing.
So first of all, Chief, thank you for coming in tonight and presenting your final budget to us, and a responsible one at that.
Thank you.
I've had the pleasure and honor of, serving on this committee for 16 of the 19 years that you've been
Really?
here. Yeah.
You had long hair.
No, that was many years ago. I think, we've always had several bald-headed guys.
We all had
on
long
the
hair.
committee. But yeah, it was always a pleasure having you come in and present your budget, because I knew it would be, a responsible budget, and, your dedication and service to this town is second to none, in my opinion, especially with regards to what we've all dealt with the last 2 years. What you put together with regards to all the COVID testing was phenomenal, in my opinion. I mean, I think our town was probably better off than any other town. And we had people coming from out of town to come here.
Out of state.
Out of state, yes.
State.
Out of country,
Eric remembers a few people
out of country.
who you're from Portugal. And
Because of what you put together, and your staff. I'm sure
Yes.
you had a lot of help with all your
It's not
staff,
a one-person
EMS.
operation.
So everybody, it was just a good collaborative effort, and cannot thank you enough for doing what you did, and for all the years that you've served here.
Thank you.
Looking forward to the
Kudos.
robocalls.
Yeah. Oh, wait till you hear this one. Grab the tissue. It's the farewell one. Thank you for that, Mr. Chairman. And I get to be the spokesperson for a team, and it's an exceptionally good team, and it's a team that would take a bullet for me, and I'd take a bullet for them, and they're just it was the right crisis with the right assets and the right people, and we really did a good job. You'll be hearing that we did over 13,000 PCR tests,
Team Acushnet.
over 3,000 rapid tests. The PCR tests alone cost the federal government $978,000 just from the nostrils that we swabbed here in town. So it was a challenge. It was a real challenge. And if I may, Chief Poitras from the police department many years ago, the morning that I was appointed acting chief back in 2003, he was the first one to call me and ask me to come over to see him. And I asked him for some advice. And he never hesitated. He said, always tell the truth. He said, just make sure you always tell the truth to the selectmen, to the finance committee, to town meeting. Because the day that you don't, you lose all your credibility. And you'll never get out of that hole. And that was, I would like to think that I would have done that anyway, but to hear a seasoned, respected public safety official like Chief Poitras say that that was the most important thing he could pass along to me was important. It was important to hear. And again, it's been mutual respect, and we've all worked well together. We all have the best interests of the town at heart. So stop me now because I'm getting misty-eyed.
Well, we look forward to seeing you around town.
Yes,
Good luck
absolutely.
to whoever's going to be the next chief.
Yeah.
Looking forward to
Yeah.
you working
And just
with them.
let me speak to that. There was always kind of in the shadows. There was always the ability of the town to go outside the department for the chief, which is something that I would have fought tooth and nail against, because we have an exceptionally good group of incapable group of firefighter paramedics working for us now, and the two senior firefighters who decided to throw their hat in the ring for consideration. I could not be happier that they've done that. And we're not that far off from in age. I would like to say that I consider them brothers, but it's more like a father and son relationship with them. They were young men when they come in. They're slowly moving into middle aged. Watched them grow as professionals and as people and as dads, and they're ready. They're more than ready to carry on.
They got big boots to fill.
No. I told them that they're not going to fill anybody's shoes. They're going to make their own footprints, and they're capable of doing that.
Well, they've had a good mentor.
No,
Mhm.
yeah,
Absolutely.
I hope so. All right,
Thank you, Chief.
Honestly, you're gonna get me emotional.
No crying.
It's the Kelly Gallagher, the Glenn, you know. Jesus, if you start singing Danny Boy, I am out of here. I am out. You want a question?
Thank you, Chief.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, Melissa.
Oh, she's not listening.
Yeah, we're muted.
She's
That's what happens with Zoom.
She's not even listening.
That's the downfall of Zoom.
I will be in touch with you tomorrow morning.
Okay.
That will-
Great,
Very good.
okay.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
That's a nice
No.
voice.
Okay, next on our agenda is our town clerk, Mrs. Pam Levanti.
Hello.
Good
You
evening.
got a tough act to follow.
I know, yeah, I always do.
We could have switched you, but we did that last week, it didn't work, or last time, it didn't work out, so.
Yes, I did watch that meeting.
Thank you.
Melissa, does she still have us muted? Can you hear me?
We can't hear you.
No, we
Can't hear her. Microphone.
I can hear you, sorry.
Oh, okay. I don't know if you have all of this, but I did
Oh,
change.
no, I did, they just got those today, yes. But with my luck, it doesn't hurt to give them, Pam.
Yeah, but they've changed again. You know me.
Oh, okay, so can I get a version of that too?
Absolutely. I'll get it to you tomorrow
Thank you.
morning.
Thank you, Pam.
Okay, yes, that was a tough act to follow for sure. I know that it had been requested that we submit a level funded budget along with a regular, or what we really feel that we're gonna need. Unfortunately, I was unable to do that due to the fact that I have been impacted by 2 additional elections. I have the state primary and the state election, and then I also will have an additional town meeting. So with that comes the cost, and it is critical that I have enough staffing. As you all know, we're still getting in the press about how the elections were not fair, how they were stolen. So it's really important that we all make sure that all of our I's are dotted and all of our T's are crossed. So I do apologize for not following the original instruction, but to be honest, I just knew it wasn't gonna work, and
It's understandable.
okay. For this past year, because I know you'll probably be looking at last year's figures or the current fiscal year. And unfortunately, no, I shouldn't say that. Fortunately, we only had 1 election and 1 town meeting. So what I did was I went back to 2019 and tried to feed off of some of those figures. Of course, there are certain increases that we have. In the meantime, between 2019 and last year, we did have an increase for the election people, trying to bring them up closer to minimum wage. But I'll start with the town clerk budget. The town clerk salary, that item is, I've level funded that here, but that will be adjusted with all the other department heads once the union contract is settled. Okay, and if I remember correctly, that's exactly the way Melissa wanted me to do it last year, so. For the clerical, this is for, I'm increasing this line item. However, I'm increasing this line item and I'm taking $2,000 from what was my temporary account. And if you take a look at the temporary salaries, my salary has consistently been over what was originally appropriated. It's happened every year, and the biggest the biggest reason is due to the elections. Last couple of years, we've had early voting, which I did not include early voting in this budget because as of right now, we're being told that the bill has not passed, okay? But do I believe that it's going to come? Yes, I do. The same as same-day voter registration. So what I did was I took $2,000 from the temporary line item and included that up with the clerical. And currently we have Vicky at 30 hours and we have Nancy at 25. And again, if you take a look at my clerical line items, that has also been impacted because of the elections. And if you take a look at 19 versus 23, which would be pretty much the most accurate of the budgets, because then we fell into COVID. And a lot of what we were able to do, we were able to get covered through COVID. And that was, again, because of primarily early voting. That's a huge expense to us for that. Okay, and what we'd be doing is taking Nancy, who is pretty much always at 30 hours, and that would make her a permanent 30, instead of having to keep going into the temporary. The temporary line item is used to cover vacation, sick time, and as we just found out this past year, with my absence from the office, but I was still working every day, this right here is also because I have employees that have been with me longer than I've been here. And they get 6 weeks vacation. I mean, one of them has almost 500 hours in sick time. And now I've got another employee that's already starting to get up there. So that really eats away at the temporary budget. Overtime, I've kept that level funded. And longevity, that's level funded. That's for union contractual. R&M office equipment, I've kept that level funded. However, what I did was I reduced the additional equipment, leaving only $1 in that line item so it doesn't get zeroed out. And so I'll forego the additional equipment because I'm pretty well all set now that we have the contract with Core Business Management for all of our copiers, all of our printers. Vital statistics, I also just brought that down to $1, knowing that I'm picking up expenses in other ways due to the elections and staffing. I did not do I didn't schedule for the vital records binding. That's for the births, deaths, marriages. And so I did it this year, and I'm going to see, depending on what the cost is. Our current vendor is not currently binding. Unfortunately, he will be retiring in the near future, and when he does, I will be forced to go to another outside vendor, which is considerably more. So as of right now, I'm just doing what I have to make sure that we're up to date, because I don't want to fall too far behind, because that's only going to cost us more in the long run. Okay. Office supplies, I level funded. Software expense is brought down $150. And that covers, right now, my marriage program. As I believe I mentioned last year, we have been looking for a dog program. Before Chris Oliver left, he was pretty much on me, to look into a new dog program. Our current vendor is no longer servicing our program. And the biggest issue that we have is that the server that this program is on and using is on our old server. As of right now, it's the only, from what I understand, the only thing on that server. And if that server crashes, I lose everything. So I've been working with Jim due to that new company for the permitting that he got the grant for. They are supposed to do a presentation for me. They've been a little harder for me to get down to giving me some numbers. So I'm a little bit concerned about them, but I'm still trying. The dog licenses, I had to increase that because since COVID, they have gone up in their prices. This year, I think I listed it in here. This year, it was $987, where last year and the year before it was $800. But the cost is going up because of the price of the tags and, of course, their staffing issues that they have. So I did have to go up a couple $100 on that one. And next one is travel. I brought that down $100. I didn't want to touch that too much because I have not been able to attend conferences. I was scheduled to go in November, but I was laid up at home, so I was unable to go. And I need those credits to maintain my certification as a certified municipal Massachusetts clerk. Okay. Dues and subscriptions, I just reduced that $50 because, as everyone knows, the Advocate is no longer in business, so I do not utilize that newspaper any longer. Bonding, I don't know how this is possible, but I've been here, it's going to be 15 years in April, and that dollar is not changed, not once, so it's always stayed at 100. So, and I'm not complaining. Okay, and the other one is the additional equipment. So what I did is on the very front page under the clericals, I just kind of gave you a breakdown. And just as a reminder that my office did have a full-time clerk. And I know last year I was able to increase Vicky's hours. But with the amount of volume that our office, between phone calls, the dog licensing, the birth certificates, it's the traffic or the phone calls is considerable. Now we are right now in I say a quieter time because individuals have not received their census forms yet, which have the dog licensing reminder. And just to give you an idea of the number of licenses, we've got more than 2,500 dogs licensed in the town. And right now we only have about 370 that are licensed. So our deadline is March 31st. So it's been in the newspaper, it's been on cable, it's been on our website, and I also include the flyer inside the census forms. And this year, I don't know if you remember a few before COVID, when we had definitive dates, I would supply everyone in the town or all of the census envelopes with an important dates at a glance. And that had all of the deadlines that pertain to the town clerk's office, voter registration, elections, dog licensing. But the last time I did this, I added in the tax bills for water and sewer. I added all of that in because even though individuals know that the DPW does they take care of the billing with the collectors, our office is the one that gets primarily the majority of the calls, because they don't know where else to call, so they figure the town clerk. So I'm hoping that that will help. And I also included on there I documented what department handles that particular item. So dog licensing, it's town clerk. Where's our town meeting going to be? Where's our elections? So that will be going out. Actually, your wife has been working on it for me. She's amazing, amazing. She is such a tremendous help. She really is.
I'll forward it to her.
I tell
You're looking
her.
for a pay raise.
No. I tell her all the time. She's fantastic. Okay, so any questions on that budget? Okay, thank you. All right, so the
Actually, I
next.
do have one.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
Go ahead.
You got it.
The software you were talking about, is that going to be cloud-based or server-based, or? Because now the question becomes, is the server that you're talking about, does that need to be replaced?
No, everything has already been moved over to the new server.
Yeah.
But because we don't have the vendor servicing this program any longer, it has to stay on the old server because I can't get it transferred over.
Is there backups of it and that kind of thing, or?
I'm sorry?
Is there backups of it?
Yes,
Okay.
but they're on that server.
Right, and you can't put it on that software.
Exactly.
Now, the new the new product that you're looking at,
Yeah,
what's going to be involved with that, do you know, or is it too early to tell?
that I don't know. Chris Oliver was helping me with that, but as we know, we've lost him. So, and I don't know how familiar he is with it, but I'll definitely
Okay.
be speaking to him as well.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I haven't had a chance to verify the multiplier for this year coming up, but I see the town clerk figured out the hours per year using 52 weeks. And if it's 52.15 or 52.2.
That's a good point.
I will adjust and I'll go through the whole budget and make sure of that.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Okay, no other questions? Nope, okay. All right, moving on to the Board of Registrars. Okay. Now, as you may know or remember, we have gone through the federal decennial census for 2020. Now, I know we're going into we are in 2022. When we're talking about 2023, we've had some redistricting within our town. And the redistricting is going to move approximately 36 to 3,800 individuals from one precinct into another. Now, the catchy thing is that many of these people are going into what is referred to as a sub-precinct. I don't know all of the ins and outs about it because the state has been very quiet. They've had some other towns that are going through some larger elections that they had to help them get through. But it looks as though we will remain having precinct 1, 2, and 3, but many of our people from precinct 1 and precinct 2 will be swapped into, so 2 will go into 1 and 1 will go into 2. And they've added as part of that the sub-precinct, which is going to be 2A. And I don't know how much truth to that there is because I've been working on getting the machines for the election, for the town election. And I just found out that we will need an additional machine. So that is going to change a lot of the dynamics for the election. And at this point, to be honest, I'm not worrying about that. because it won't really affect us until the September primary and the state primary. The local election should be absolutely fine. With that comes all of the additional work that needs to be, all of the voters need to be changed, all of our files need to be updated, which means pulling cards from one precinct, documenting that it's now been moved to, they've been moved to this precinct, and refiling. So that alone is going to be a large feat for my office. And I pretty much have my head registrar taking care of that for me. She pretty much organizes, she'll call, like Bob's wife will come in and give me a hand with items like that. Right now, she's helping me with census forms to get them out in the mail. So this is going, between the additional elections, okay, so again, we'll end up having 3, and then two town meetings. So I've had to increase that line item for that. I've also had to increase that line item because everyone has to be notified, which means additional mailings will need to be done. I have to create postcards that tell people that they're not going to be there. Now, I thought about doing that for this year. The problem with doing it this year is I would end up having to do 2 mailings, which would mean double the postage, because I would want to send an additional notification out to individuals as it gets closer to the election, which I do expect that there is going to be a lot of confusion. The good thing is that all of our precincts as of right now are all located in the school. So it's not like the older days when they were at the Council on Aging, or they were out on Middle Road at the library. So at least people don't have to get in their car and drive somewhere else. So that does make it a little bit easier. But it is going to require a lot more work than what we normally have to put in for an election year. Okay. Let's see. And I've listed also what the elections are, and then the town meeting in the fall, that's to be determined. And I just kind of gave you a listing of how this line item, how it's used, some of the jobs that it does take care of. And right now we're in the process of doing the petitions, a petition and nomination papers for the annual town meeting. Let's see, the next line item is voting programmers and movers. And this is for the maintenance on the ES&S machines, which those are the Optech Eagles that I'm trying desperately to put on the back shelf, because I'm only one of 4 communities that still has that equipment. And it's over 30 years old. So, which I do have the funding, thank you to town meeting. It's just a matter of COVID really put a slow on it. So I did this based on using the 4 voting machines, which one of them is our backup machine, because we only have 3. However, this line item is probably going to change, and that's because if we get the new equipment, I won't have to worry about the annual maintenance for the first year. The ballot printing will still need to be done, but that's only done for our town election. All of the others are supplied to us from the state. So, and that's also for the coding of the 3 memory packs that go into the machine with all the voting information, and our handicap machine, which is the voter assist machine. So this line item really may end up changing significantly if I'm able to get the new machines. Okay. Let's see. The voting census, that line item is the same, and that is only used for the printing of our resident street listing books. And because as far as the census, we do it all in-house. We've got a folding machine, and when it doesn't jam, that's a wonderful, wonderful piece of equipment. And let me see. Communication and advertising, we don't need that line item as long as the Fairhaven News will post notifications for us and do little articles for us, which they've been wonderful. Office supplies, that one I did increase, and that's primarily due to, I'm going to need, I think I've told you before, our Haver cartridges that we need for our voting handicap machine requires one for testing, one for election day, and then you have to always have a backup in case the cartridge doesn't work at the polls. So essentially, we pretty much need 3 cartridges, and last time I checked, they were $50 a piece. So that's a good chunk that we have to have taken out. And I also will need to purchase more plexiglass for the tables for our inspectors. And the last one is travel. I level funded that as well. Questions?
Any questions for Pam?
I'm good.
Okay. All right, the last one is town meeting and elections, and you can see that line item has been increased. Actually, it's pretty much almost doubled. And again, that's from going from 1 election to 3 elections, and 1 town meeting to 2 town meetings. So what I did was I broke it down by the number of staff that I need, what their rates are, and what FY23, what each category would be. So, and then down at the bottom, of course, is the total. So for each election, just staffing alone, I need at least $4,452. And if you take that, multiply that times the 3, and then throw in town meeting, that's how I derived at that number.
Anybody else have any questions for Pam?
No.
Not much you can do about that.
Yeah. I wish there was something more I could, and I tried to just redirect some of the funds as best I could.
Just for clarification for me,
Yeah.
redistricting,
Yeah.
when do you think that's next year?
Well, what's happened is the redistricting is taking place in this fiscal year, 2022. However, sending out the notifications for this, we don't need to worry about the redistricting for our local election, because if you're in precinct 1, you're in precinct 1. And we're all voting for the same individuals. But the state primary is different because we've now been, the town has been divided by
Different representatives?
Right.
Really?
Exactly.
Uh,
So we have one that is going to be, it's Westport, Pottafall River, and Fairhaven. And then 2 precincts will be voting with Freetown, Lakeville, with that area. So that's, and then that precinct, part of precinct 2, no, I'm sorry, precinct 1 becomes that 2A precinct, sub-precinct that I was referring to.
Right.
So we're still trying to nail the state down because they've been very, very vague with details. And I've tried to get as much information as I can, but they don't want to give anybody any information until they get the other towns that have the immediate needs taken care of. But I'll be doing the mailings later because it'll affect more people.
Sounds like you get your hands full.
Yeah. It's a good thing I love my job.
It is a busy year for you, huh?
Yeah. But at least it's not 2020 again.
Yeah.
So that was, I don't know how I survived that one, or my crew did. But,
Yeah, nobody wants to go back to that.
oh gosh, no,
So,
no. Okay,
Pam, thanks for coming in tonight.
Oh, you're
If
very
we have any
welcome.
questions for you, we'll reach out.
yeah, please.
Okay.
Yep, anytime.
And I hope to see you tomorrow with my dog license.
Very good. Oh, can I just put a plug out that the dog licensing is due?
You got ours.
It's due March 31st.
I'll actually be contributing to that by adding a dog license.
Oh, very good, adding to the revenue.
Actually, I got a question before you leave.
Yes.
Does a puppy have to get a dog license?
Yes, they do.
They do?
Even though they're a puppy,
Okay.
they are up to 6 months old. Once
Oh.
they turn 6 months old, they have to be licensed.
Okay, so
'Cause
he's not 6 months yet.
Yeah, and it has to, of course, have its rabies, so
Yes.
that's one of
Oh,
the
yeah.
reasons why.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
Okay?
We got our two, we had to pay the fines last year.
I did too. And I never got the notice, that's why I was like, geez. But I
Yeah.
got the notice, I got the email or the mail a couple of days ago, so I'll be in there this week.
People in the office are great, by the way.
Oh, thank
They do a
you,
great
thank you.
job.
I honestly, I'm so blessed to have the crew that I do. And with me working from home for quite a while, I couldn't have done it without them. I mean, and the number of compliments I got on my staff during my absence it was heartwarming because they also love what they do.
Good.
So I think it shines through. So thank you, I
Absolutely.
appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pam.
You're welcome.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
night.
You too.
Okay, next on tonight's agenda is some meeting minutes that we have to vote on January 26th, 2022. In attendance was myself, Eric Chu, Sue Delgado, Bob Ferrera, Eric Glenn, and Gail Rogers.
Make a motion. Second.
All in favor?
Thank
Minutes are approved. Anybody have any old business to discuss tonight? Okay, under new business, Pete, I'd like to have you address the committee with regards to the interactions you've had with Old Colony recently with the email and what they're looking for.
Yeah, the superintendent, Aaron, had reached out during the week, and I had forwarded the email off to Mike, just wanting to see if we were comfortable with the number moving forward that they had presented for Acushnet. I guess they're going into their own final process and setting up their budget for it. So I know we talked about it at the last meeting 2 weeks ago. Our town administrator gave me an update on our numbers for it, and I know we were looking at just over a 3% increase, or 3.7 or 3.8% increase overall in their budget from last year to this year. And we had our increase because our student count had increased as well. I know when we went through line by line, there were no red flags. The biggest portion of those increases was due to them having to purchase additional transportation now that Freetown was out of their district and those students were going away. Freetown was contractually obligated to pay for the busing for their students to go to Old Colony. Now that we have less students, it's requiring them to purchase or utilize another vehicle. And that was a majority of the increases on the line items. At least certainly the biggest that was out there in terms of where our costs were coming from, that 3%. I think transportation was something like 1.8% of it.
So basically, we know the dollar amount that is going to be, that we're obligated to.
Yeah.
We know the dollar amount that they're asking for,
Yeah.
they just wanna know whether or not we're comfortable with it. I think we were all in agreement, although I'm speaking for everybody, that when we went through line by line, we didn't see anything that jumped out saying that this isn't right, so I know I was comfortable with it, that's why.
So the fact that you went through this, that they went through this process with you, are they not gonna come before us and present that?
I do not believe so.
Okay.
They're
All right, 'cause
coming
that was my
before
understanding.
I think they were asking if they should come before the town, and we haven't answered them.
I think that's what they were looking for, and I didn't want to speak for the committee.
And,
As chairman, I wanted a consensus here.
I think they were talking about your next meeting, if you want them to come in, which is on the 9th, I believe.
Next week.
Yep.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up
And-
after you give us your report.
And the dollar amount, the total draft assessment is $2,282,455. It's about $187,000 increase. 111 to 112 it involves the operating budget, and then there's 138,460, which is capital and debt spending.
But originally, we thought that number was gonna be higher, correct?
Originally, we were thinking that that number was gonna be closer to, I think, over
200,000.
2, yeah,
Yeah.
and it's below what that was.
Yeah, it's about 187. I can get you the exact figure, but I figured you wanted the exact assessment figure.
Well, that's, yeah, we're gonna need that. Could you actually repeat that again?
$2,282,455.
And you said that represents like a $187,000 increase.
Approximately,
Yeah.
and change. I believe. I have it written down upstairs, but I figured you
Okay.
just really need the exact assessment. 'Cause
Right.
you don't really have a lot of options.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
kids
So-
are going there.
Right. So the question for the group here tonight is, are we okay with these numbers as a consensus here? Or do we still want to have them come in and present their budget?
Mr. Chairman, they are just been accepted into the MSBA process. So I think they should come in and talk to you folks on what their plans are, what the beginning process, because it isn't even at a feasibility study stage yet. But the town has to be actively involved from now till 2024. So I figured it's better if they're in early on this.
I did participate several months ago in, they had a luncheon and they invited our delegation from the town, and I was there. Gail Rogers was with me, and Selectman Wonar, as well as Selectman Desrochers. So that was like their beginning meeting with regards to this.
They just got notification today.
Oh, okay. That it's officially moving forward.
I'll be able to, once we get a copy, but it's addressed to the superintendent from the MSBA, and it's pleased to report that the MSBA Board of Directors voted to invite the statement of interest for the Old Colony Regional Vocational Technical High School in the district into the MSBA's eligibility period. they've got a real divided, segmented way they go through this whole process.
Right. Right, so it's gonna be with regards to either going through a renovation process of that school, I believe,
Well,
or,
yeah, this isn't even the feasibility issue yet. But they also want the town and the district on board in every single step.
So I guess my question is, does it make sense to have them in the middle of budgets? Or would it make more sense to, once we have our budget set, to discuss it?
I'm not sure, as I said, I looked at it quickly now, but I think maybe they should come in to, even for a brief period, not only talk about their budget, but talk about how much involvement and the time frames that, because there is no wiggle room with the MSBA. You miss one time frame, you're done, and you can't go back.
to my understanding, I think they're gonna need all the towns on the same page with regards to this, because if
It's dependent on the agreement, the regional district agreement. But each town has to participate. There was not a clarification as far as, does it have to be a unanimous vote or not from the MSBA? When I read all their stuff today, they said you have to go talk to council and find out what your regional district agreement says concerning that. And so that's what we'll have to do.
because that could potentially be a big issue. I mean,
And this includes if it's any debt exclusion are needed all the way down the pike. So that's why incrementally it is multiple small steps you have to take all the way along, including, and then once you get in beyond the feasibility, and you're into pre-construction, it even gets more involved. And it's both town and school district have to be on the same page all the way through.
right, and I think that's all the neighboring towns that participate in the colony. I think if there's one that doesn't want to move forward, then it's not going to go forward.
Veto powers.
Well, it depends on what the regional district agreement says.
Well, that would be something, that's something we're going to need to. It's
So
pretty
you said
important for us to know.
that council will be looking at it, you said?
Yeah.
So back to the question, do we want to have, because I in the past, Mr. Polanski would come in and talk to us about their budget, and, he could potentially just, give us some more information with regards to this.
I'd say then, fine, we should probably have them come in.
Okay,
I don't have a problem, yeah,
okay, so,
Yeah.
so you'll reach out to them, Pete?
yes.
Now, I don't know if this is kind of a short notice for next week. I don't know if they'll be able, if they'll be able to have representation here next week, so. And to be honest with you, I'm not even sure who we have coming in next week. That was gonna be my question to Kathy. Kathy, do you know if we have anyone committed to coming in next week?
Old Colony,
All right, so Old Colony is committed to coming in next week. Okay, all right, so there we
Well,
go.
answer that.
Answers that.
I might be giving you a number of budgets to look at also.
Okay, so Old Colony and.
That'll be drafts.
Yeah, we would, in the past, we would consider that like Board of Selectmen
Yeah,
budget.
because the board still has to go through them all on the 15th.
Yes.
But at least give you folks a heads up on some of them.
So next week would be Old Colony, we'll say Board of Selectmen budget. off the top of my head, I think the only one we're gonna have left is our schools. Is that correct, Kathy? I think we've had everybody come in.
They're meeting the 8th, I believe.
Yeah, actually, EMA was gonna come in first, but I thought that's gonna be really small, and then just Old Colony, and then it was the schools. Everyone else has been in.
Okay, so EMA is scheduled to come in when?
Before Old Colony, right at 7.
Oh, so next week, okay. All right, so next week is EMA, Old Colony, and Board of Selectmen, and then we're gonna wrap things up with our schools on the 23rd. Because they couldn't come in on the 16th. So we're gonna have a week in between now, after next week. So
I've got to check with the Board of Selectmen because there was a suggestion that it be a
Joint meeting.
committee.
Yes,
meeting
I actually,
at school.
I had spoken with Chairman Tesrocius about that, and told him the date that we were gonna be meeting with the school. It was gonna be scheduled at the Ford Middle School Library, and like we did in previous years,
That works out.
it was a
well.
collaborative meeting between us, the school, and the Board of Selectmen, and Town Administrator. We'd all be there together. So that's how I'd like to proceed with that this year as well.
A couple other items.
Yes, go ahead.
It looks like the estimate for snow and ice deficit is 115,000.
Hopefully it stops there.
Yeah, the latest snowstorm cost us just a little over 11,000. And as you folks know, it's worse if you have ice than if you just have to plow snow.
Mhm.
And we have, according to the DPW business manager, we have the bills pending, sand, almost 11,000, salt, almost 7,500, contractor bills about 2,000, equipment of 22,000, and then we most likely will see if we can purchase sand and salt one more time, which will be another 30,000.
Yeah, DPW had said 2 weeks ago he wants to stock up now while the prices are still good.
That's a very smart move.
Yeah, we're also having a problem getting mix for the potholes. At one point, he had to use cold patch, which doesn't work. I would describe it another way, but we're on TV. And it's because he has to go all the way to Avon right now to get the mix in. At some point, they were closed. As I said, we're looking at right now a out of balance budget 500 to 300,000, depending on how bad we get screwed by the health insurance provider. They're looking at a 14.5% increase. And when I did a population study between last July 1 and now, we've also added about 16 people to just subscribers to the health insurance. We're still in discussion with Harvard Health Plan. I met with Maya. We had a extended conversation, and we came to an agreement that there should be no change in the other insurances. I don't know if that'll stand for next year, but they've listened to the fact that your loss rate is not as bad in the other insurances as it is in the health insurance. We're at about 120 to 129, depending on how you look at it, percent loss ratio in health insurance. And they want to see you between 75 and 87%. So we're way over.
Gotta get everybody healthier.
But part of the problem is this town purchases health insurance individually. You're not part of a group where you can spread the loss around a purchasing group. You're individual, so you have at least 10 catastrophic cases that are driving some of it, but you also see that now that COVID's over, everybody is using the medical services, and it's driving the year that drives the rates very high.
That's right. That's why everybody needs to get healthier. We need a health coach in town.
On retirement, it looks like it's gonna be 100,728 bottom line for the increase. The
What was that number again?
100,728 increase in the retirement accounts. 1,604,427 for the Bristol County retirement, and 224,409 for Medicare. And that's an estimate based on payroll. It's 1.45% in payroll, but that's a moving figure at all times. So we're getting the budget busters, we're finding where we are and getting some definitive numbers. We just closed the books and did Schedule A and the balance sheet, so we should be able to get you your revenue figures in the next couple days.
That'd be great. So, since we're gonna have an open week on March 16th,
Should I come in at that point?
do you think we would have a lot more solid numbers at that point?
Beyond numbers, we'd probably have a lot more solid information on the articles.
So we could set up a meeting just for that purpose,
Mhm.
for that meeting,
Yes.
since we're not gonna have any, specific hearings that night. So I
And
think
if
that'd be a
it,
good idea to do
if it
that.
changes, I'll let you folks know that if we need to add something else to the agenda.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you for the update, Mr. Kelly.
No problem, and I'll get your bill paid.
Sounds good. Awesome. All right, I think that is going to wrap things up tonight.
Motion to adjourn? Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, this meeting is adjourned.